not yet, the devices had not yet arrived on the scene. They are here now, and they are going to be using them. They have indications that there may be somebody underneath that center section of rubble right there, and that's where they made the determination that they want to start to do their searching. So they'll be doing that in the next 15 or 20 minutes here. They'll be asking for total silence from everybody around in the area. That'll go out over a PA system, and you'll be able to hear a pin drop right out there, because all the air traffic and everybody else is going to be out of the area, as we are some 2.5 miles away now, as we continue to monitor this situation that has left several people dead, at least 4 people taken to Kendall Regional Medical Center, one of them a trauma alert with major injuries. Reports of one person who was able to escape and extricate themselves and ended up in the parking garage at the FIU campus right there at the base of this concrete pedestrian walkway that came down, treated by fire rescue on the scene for some bumps and bruises right now. On the scene, will not be transported at this time. So a fluid situation here as they continue to assess the damage that was done here. There was this big crane that was here on the scene that was being used for some construction work. They did bring it in and move it closer to the scene with the idea that at some point they may need to be to either secure some of the concrete loads while the firefighters work underneath, or to remove some of that concrete so they can access some of the vehicles that are trapped underneath there, possibly with people and drivers inside.
All right, Ralph Rayburn, thank you very much. Lynn Martinez once again joining you for this live coverage. Jeff Lennox and I are going to be with you for a while, going to see this to the end. I want to give you one updated piece of information before we recap everything right now. I told you earlier that Miami-Dade Fire Rescue was asking for additional help. We're now correcting that. This is a fluid situation. You know, this happens during breaking news. Things change, so I want to just tell everybody Miami-Dade Fire Rescue is not requesting additional doctors and nurses to respond there to the scene at FIU. So if you heard me say that earlier, you're not being urged to go. What they right now need is organization and to get to those people who are trapped. If you're now joining us live here on 7 News, it is a little after 3 o'clock, about an hour and 15 minutes ago. This pedestrian bridge there at the Sweetwater campus at Florida International University that is brand spanking new collapsed for whatever reason. A live picture is to your left there of the aerial view, and to your right is video of this collapse. Again, it happened a little more than an hour ago. It was not officially open for pedestrians, even though it was unveiled on Saturday. You can see the orange plastic fencing on the bottom, but there were plenty of cars underneath this very busy roadway, 8 lanes of traffic. If you've ever been in that area, you know that 8th Street and Tamiami Trail is very, very busy. And when that bridge collapsed, maybe there were no pedestrians on it crossing. There might have been some construction workers on the top there, but there were definitely drivers below. When this bridge pancaked on top of each other, the 2 sections pancaked, the large pieces of concrete smashing onto the vehicles below. Several people are dead, we know at this point, and at least 1 person has been transported to Kendall Regional Medical Center as a trauma alert. This is a 950-ton span of bridge that collapsed, and to your right is sort of I'm not sure what we're looking at to the right, but anyway, to your left is a live picture. To your right is, okay, ground pictures. Thank you, Jeff. But the challenge right now to this catastrophic event is getting this 950-ton span of concrete off the cars that are trapped. And as Jeff has been telling you, and all of our reporters have been telling you, the technical rescue team there has set up a command post, and their main mission right now is search and rescue devices to actually get to anybody who may be trapped underneath and get them help that they desperately need.
And that's why our chopper had to pull back. Again, the noise from the rotors on the helicopter might be creating some ambient noise, so helicopters have pulled back so they can go ahead and use those devices to see if anyone is in fact underneath that bridge and trying to call out for help here at this hour. But we talk about this structure, again, this pedestrian bridge that is designed to connect Sweetwater to the FIU campus, first of its kind in the way in which it was constructed off-site and then brought in over the weekend, and it was, again, lifted on Saturday. I believe right now we have Rosh Lowe establishing his ground picture. Talked to him on the phone just a short while ago. Rosh, if you can, we don't have Rosh? Okay, we do have him. Rosh, what can you see from your vantage point right now?
Okay, so this is what I was talking about. Let me step out of the way about Southwest 8th Street being closed down, and you can see a really active situation with Miami-Dade Fire bringing in more units, as we just told you on the phone, You can still see some private ambulances down there, as well as Miami-Dade police. And in the distance, you can see the bridge that we're talking about right there. So they have moved us back about 7 or 8 blocks, at least initially here, as they are trying to go in there and to remove all of that rubble. We spoke with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and what they told me, just to repeat this information in case you weren't with us at that moment, they told me that they wouldn't really know the totality of what is going on here until they're able to remove all of that concrete that is there on the ground. Obviously, these are very anxious moments for people who are just arriving here on the scene. We did speak with one person who said that a friend called them and said that somebody was injured, extremely helpless, because even for firefighters to a certain extent, because you simply cannot remove all of this concrete to see exactly what they are dealing with until they can bring in some of the heavy machinery, heavy lifting equipment to get the concrete out of there. We do have public information officers from both Miami-Dade Fire Rescue and Miami-Dade Police en route to the scene at an area that is a bit closer on the FIU campus. So in terms of the numbers, and when I speak of numbers, injured and casualties, those numbers should be forthcoming soon as they can determine how many people they have underneath that bridge, if anyone. Right now you can see, Southwest 8th Street, which is usually packed with traffic here, especially as you approach the turnpike, pretty much shut down there as you have all those rescue units there on the scene. And now the initial process really begins trying to remove all of that rubble.
And Rosh, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, when you did that interview with Kirsten Miller just a short while ago, she described this as a level 2, meaning, and correct me if I'm wrong here, more than 5 patients they're dealing with. Is that correct?
Yes, the severity of this was increased, and what we have learned in the past in situations like this is that you really do want to stay away from numbers because it is A, very sensitive, and B, as she was mentioning to us, you really don't know. What you do know are the people that you could see that were injured, and those people, and you can see the amount of ambulances that were here. Hopefully you'll be able to hear from some of these witnesses. We were able to speak to one witness, at least over the phone, and she was actually headed to class, and she said that this was just so bizarre. At one moment you see this bridge, and the next it collapses. And Kirsten Miller from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue compared the rescue effort to be similar to when there's an earthquake, which would happen in an earthquake. It's there one moment and it collapses the next. We do know that Southwest 8th Street is a very busy road. I don't know how many vehicles were underneath that bridge. I believe that we could see at least one vehicle that was underneath that bridge. That's also going to be something else for Miami-Dade Fire Rescue to try to determine as they go in there for the rescue efforts now.
All right, we're going to keep, obviously, our reporters, including Rosh Lowe, there live on the scene as we bring you these live pictures. To your left is a ground picture, and I believe that's coming at least from Rosh or maybe Holly. And to your right is an aerial view from Ralph Rayburn. I want to go back to Ralph as we look at these live pictures. Right, thank you for this larger picture. Ralph, have we seen any movement from that crane or any attempt to remove these large slabs of concrete?
No, that's not going to be happening for a while. What they're doing is they're trying to assess the damage from a standpoint of, initially, Lynn, it's always search and rescue. That's the term that they use, search and rescue. And then it becomes search and recovery after they determine that they cannot render any aid to anybody that might be injured. At this point, they're still focusing on several small sections of what would be the westbound road there on Southwest 8th Street here at 109th Avenue, where this pedestrian bridge came down. They're focusing on that right now. They're using several listening devices that are provided by the technical rescue team there and a search and rescue team, trying to listen for any sounds of anybody that might be trapped underneath there. But the body language of them right now would be an indication that there's not much of development in the way of them finding or hearing anything at this point. They're going to continue to do that. They do that for about 15 or 20 minutes. They, as I mentioned to Jeff, they'll ask for silence out there on a PA microphone, get everybody to just be very quiet for a few minutes as they listen. They also do have, one of their assets are canines that are trained for this urban rescue type thing when you have a building collapse or a structural collapse. I have not received any word that they are going to be brought out here, but that is an asset they may be considering. Again, this structure came down on top of a number of vehicles here. There were some folks that were able to extricate themselves and get out. Good Samaritans, along with fire rescue and police personnel that were first responders out here, treated a number of people. We know that at least 4 or 5 people were taken to Kendall Regional Medical Center. One of them was at least one of them was a trauma alert victim with some severe injuries. We know that at least one person originally was reported deceased on the scene. Now we're getting indications that there may be several in these vehicles that were trapped underneath this when this structure that is probably maybe 25 to 30 feet at its highest point came down. 2 layers of concrete pancaked together and then down onto the ground there on top of those vehicles. And you gave a number for how many tons it is, but obviously a massive structure and a massive collapse out here, Lynn.
Ralph, we traded out. This is Balkis Narena with Jeff Lennox here. I believe Lynn had earlier said it's 950 tons. So really, even the rescuers, now they have to get in there and figure out how are they going to move these pieces to get to these people. This is, for lack of a better description, a dangerous real-life game of Jenga almost. You know, if you move one thing, you might make things worse. You can't just rush in there and get to it. It's very methodical what these rescue workers have ahead of them.
And that's where this technical rescue team comes in with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. And Ralph, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more. That's obviously the urgent scene that we're watching. They're using pulleys. They can use airbags to shift and move this concrete, lift the concrete, if you will. Have you seen any of that going on right now there at the scene on Southwest 8?
That's something that will happen. That will happen down the road. But what happens right now is all they're trying to do is communicate with anybody or to ascertain if there's anybody in any of those vehicles that's underneath there and find out if there's a life-saving need. That's the primary focus right now. If it involves moving concrete or if it involves moving any of the structure, lifting any of it, that will come in time. But right now, it's obviously the assessment is there anybody left underneath there that is still alive? So that's the number one consideration. That's what they're doing right now. Once they make that consideration, if they do establish contact, I'm sure we'll see quite a scurry of activity, but that's not happening right now. What we're seeing is those, especially right in the dead center of the screen, right there, just below that the base of that red crane. You can see there are firefighters there. There's one that appears to be doing some manual labor there, either pumping up some kind of a device. Of course, our distance now does not enable us to give you any tighter picture here. We're several miles away after consideration was given to the fact that they need a silence up there, as we said earlier, so they can hear any cries for help or any noises or any sounds emanating from underneath that big pile of debris.
And we do err on the side of caution, like Ralph just said, when it comes to numbers. Still a very fluid situation. Florida Highway Patrol reporting that several people are dead. At one point, we had heard that possibly at least 5 vehicles were still completely trapped underneath that pedestrian bridge. And Ralph, stay with me one moment. Just getting a statement a short while ago from the construction company who constructed this pedestrian bridge that was again put into place on Saturday. Their statement reads, and I quote, "Our family's thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by this terrible tragedy. The new University City Bridge, which was under construction, experienced a catastrophic collapse, causing injuries and loss of life. Munilla Construction Management is a family business, and we are all devastated and doing everything we can to assist. We will conduct a full investigation to determine exactly what went wrong and will cooperate with investigators on scene in every way. Again, that statement from Manila Construction Management. They installed this bridge on Saturday. Still more construction to come in this project, set to open January of last year. But again, that statement coming in just a short while ago.
We're also hearing that Governor Rick Scott is headed to South Florida. He plans on being in the area at FIU later this evening. He wants to get the latest from law enforcement officials there and university officials, rescue personnel and such, on the situation, on the rescue efforts, and how this happened. Obviously, everyone wanting to know how this 174-foot bridge collapsed after just being put in place there over the weekend. That part of Southwest 8th Street was closed so that the construction folks could start to begin to put this bridge into place. That's the picture that you're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen. This 174-foot, 950-ton section of bridge. It was built away from that scene, and they brought it in over the weekend to put it in place. And what it was going to do was connect both parts of 8th Street so that FIU students could walk back and forth between FIU and Sweetwater. And the reason they built it off-site was because